Hello, fellow hobby nerd. I am Solar Cross, and in this video I am declaring war on my pile of shame, my hobby pile of shame, or as I like to put it a little more positively, my hoard of opportunity. Because, you know, if you're kit bashing or whatever, having a big old stack of stuff to dip into is not such a terrible thing. But it is bad because I have lots and lots of unpainted, unassembled miniatures, and obviously that's a bit of a waste. It takes up space apart from anything else. So I want to get on it, put a dent in this enormous pile. And so I think before I go on to what I'm actually going to do to motivate myself, because it is mostly a motivational issue, what I'm going to do is just have a quick tour of what I've got. I'm not going to go into detail because that would be boring. But so what we've got up here on the top shelf there. Most of these are untouched, I would say. Mostly the Leviathan box doesn't have the Space Marines. I bought that on eBay just for the Tyranids, so it's the Tyranid half. Cursed City up there, Blackstone Fortress, etc., etc. I won't go to detail. So there's more on the bottom shelf here. We got some here in the middle there. That's all pretty much solid sprues, and we've got loads of boxes I haven't even touched. A lot of them still have the plastic on. And we also got these 3 plastic boxes, which are pretty full of stuff. I mean, most of it's loose stuff. And over here we've got 4 old plastic containers, and they're barely full of sprues too, and most of them unpunched. This was particularly dense, this one here. Finally, my last big purchase, which I bought just a few days ago, is the Hive Storm Kill Team box, which has got quite a lot of terrain pieces in it. So that's the pile of shame, or most of it. I should mention I've got some half-done stuff on this shelf. Not all of it's half done. The Wave Serpent and the Cobra's finished. The Warwalker at the back's finished. This Raider, this Dark Eldar Raider is mostly finished. Well, I say mostly, there's probably more things to do on it. And on the next shelf up, we've got some Tank Busters, which just need the final bit of colour on them. The Death, what do they call them? Oh, I don't know what they're called. The Orc Copters, those are finished actually. And these 3 trucks actually are done. So that's not really part of the pile of shame. There's a Lemon Rust, which is mostly done. And behind that is just some guard bits, which are half done as well. And so this is what I have painted. And it doesn't look like a lot, because I paint to sell. So a lot of the times when it's done, it gets put on eBay and sold for a bit of profit. But this is what I have not sold at the moment. And as you can see, they're all in this rather lovely box. And this is a fairly recent purchase, and I'm actually really pleased with it, because you've got sort of 2 problems. Once you've finished painting something, of course, you've got to store it somewhere, haven't you? And when it really comes down to it, storage is a twofold problem, because on one hand, you want to keep the dust off it. You want to keep children and cats from tampering with them. And the other thing you want to do is transport them to a gaming venue, perhaps potentially, without getting damaged or lost or whatever. So what this box does, it actually does both different jobs, and they're quite different jobs in one. So it's clear acrylic everywhere, so that allows it to be a display. You can use it at home as a display thing to keep the dust off and whatever. But it's got a handle. And these metal trays, if you put your minis on magnets, let's find a metal tray. So I've put this ogre's on magnets, look. So, you know, in theory, you can transport it, and as your car is vibrating or whatever, it stays in place. on the tray. So that's the other thing. And it's got lots of trays, and there are more than I need at the moment. But potentially I could actually store more. If I got these vehicles out, they don't really want to be in there. And just had it infantry, then probably get even more. And there's really loads of orcs. Look at how many orcs are on one tray. So I actually think it's pretty good. I'll put a link in the description of where I found it, and that might be of interest to you. I'm actually going to do a full review in another video of this box, but this is just a quick look at it. And that's not really what this video is about. It's not really about that. It's about the war on my hobby pile of shame. So the next thing to think about is, what is my real motivation, my aim for really kicking back against this accumulation of stuff which is unpainted and, you know, no use to anyone, just sat in a box. It's just taking up space, right? So I'm just moved to this area quite recently, and I'm sort of looking for a gaming group. It's a bit of a rural area. I'm not finding people too nearby. So, but I did notice that there was a local gaming group that does board games. So they don't really do Warhammer, but they do board games. And so I thought, well, you know what? If I painted my Cursed City miniatures, that's almost like a board game. So perhaps I could get in there, and then maybe I could talk people into trying Warhammer 40k or something. And obviously, you know, you have to be a bit hardcore to pick up Warhammer 40k, because it's a bit of it is a heavy lift, isn't it? I mean, you have to spend quite a lot of money, and your game pieces are ridiculously luxurious, right? And they want to be painted and everything. So it's quite a lot of work. You just think of the work that goes into it. A lot of people are just not into that. Table, like D&D is fine. They'll do that because it's quite low rent. And Magic the Gathering, or what's the other thing? Board games. You know, that's all quite relatively easy to get into in comparison. So you got to start somewhere anyway. So I thought, you know, Cursed City, it's basically a board game, just with fancy game pieces, like a tabletop war game. And so that's what I'll do. I'll get that painted up. But then I thought, well, you know what? Just because there isn't really anyone nearby I can play Warhammer with, that doesn't stop me playing tournaments, because tournaments is a thing. And I don't really agree that Warhammer 40k is a competitive game. I just don't think anything involving a lot of dice is really properly something you should be playing competitively. So tournaments don't make sense in a certain point of view. But on the other hand, they do let you play the game. That's a venue. If people definitely are into it, go there and they do it. So if I started doing that, then I would actually be able to play the game, hopefully at some point. But of course, then I've got to get an army together. And if I I mean, as I said, did I say? I can't remember now. I do paint to sell. So a lot of what I have isn't really enough for a whole army at the moment. So I need to paint a lot more and try not to sell it, so I can have an army to play tournaments. And so that's the two things. I wanted to get a board game painted, the Cursed City, and maybe also Blackstone Fortress, because that's basically a board game, right? And perhaps even at some point I could do Kill Team, because that's a bit of a step up from the likes of Cursed City in terms of being like a board game. It's a bit more than that, isn't it? But at the same time, being a skirmish game, it's a bit easier, possibly, than something ridiculous like Warhammer 40k or Warhammer Fantasy Battles or something like that. So, so what's the problem? Why don't I just paint? Well, you know, if you're watching this video, you must be some stupid fucking nerd like me who does this ridiculous hobby. You know what it is. It's you have the time, you have the money because you paid for it all, but somehow when you have your free time, it's just so much easier to do something which is a lot easier. So you don't do it. You put it off because there's no deadlines. That's one thing. You know, it's the human nature to not do things unless you really have to do it, you know, because it's an expenditure of time and energy, and I don't know. It's just like So but the thing with a hobby thing, no one cares if you don't paint this. But look, you don't care even. You're interested in this hobby. Do you care if I have painted this stuff? No, you don't. Not really. You barely care about your own pile of shame. You certainly don't care about mine. So you need something like a deadline, something to motivate you. Not even just a deadline, but some reason to just get over that initial hump. And then, once you get over the hump of actually starting something and doing it, you actually get it done. And you can stay for ages doing stuff. I've spent a lot of hours on all this. This is, and we'll go into it, but this is going to be my first session of a hobby streak. And I'm going to talk a little bit about hobby streaks because the hobby streak I'm going to do is a bit different. It's a bit different from standard. I have done a standard hobby streak and I put it on my blog. You can find the link in the description if you're really interested in that. And what the standard hobby streak is you make a pact with yourself and the world, actually, to do at least half an hour of hobby work every day. And that's each day adds to your streak. So if you do 7 days, that's a streak of 7. You keep going another 10 days, it becomes a streak of 17. As soon as you miss a day, it goes back to 0. So that's your streak, is how long you manage to do it every day. Well, that's all well and good. But then what happens if you need to go away for the weekend or something like that? Or you just have a really mad day at work and you're just bummed out and you just can't do anything, not even your half an hour. Is it actually helpful to lose your streak doing that? So my thinking is, well, don't have the unit of the streak. Doesn't have to be a day, does it? It could be a week. So every week, instead of half an hour every day, you make a pact to do 4 hours, for example, every week, or 5, whatever, right? And you can choose whatever days you do it on, but you still have to do this 4 hours every week to get your streak, right? And so that's the way I'm going to do it. And this is also better in another way, because when you do a streak, a basic streak, you part of it is you should document what you've done and put it on the internet. And usually you just take pictures. For a normal hobby streak where you do it daily, you can just take pictures, and that's quite quick and easy to do. My plan is, as I do YouTube now quite a lot, or I want to do more YouTube, I thought document it using YouTube. So that's video, not pictures. And video is a lot more effort to do. Making a video for YouTube, it involves editing and just a lot more. It is just a lot more work. So if you had to do that every day, that would be ridiculous. But making one video per week to document your whole streak, that's just more doable. So that's what I'm going to do. This is the first week of my hobby streak, second attempt at a hobby streak, doing a week streak. And so should we talk a bit about what I've done? Because if this is going to be, I have to document, right? So we're documenting. So as already mentioned, I've assembled all the cursed city miniatures. That's the villains and the heroes. And I've based them as well, and I put magnets so I can potentially transport them in my little box there, my special display box. And that's probably at least 4 hours, honestly. Easily that's my 4 hours just there. But I also did a few other things. These killer cans I bought recently off eBay, just a random impulse buy. I do collect orcs, so it's not, it's not totally incongruous. And I bought them off eBay, so they were already primed and mostly assembled. All I had to do really was glue the arms on and glue it to the base and base it. So that was quite a quick and easy job. The next job was a bit bigger. What I did was I fished out the Clute hunting pack, which came out with the 10th edition Tau Codex. And I just thought, screw it, I'll just do all the miniatures in that. And so that's what I did. I snipped them from the sprues, assembled them, Stuck them to bases, textured the bases, and I did a little bit of priming because I thought these models in particular, it'd be quite hard to get the airbrush to, because I use an airbrush. I prefer to use an airbrush to prime my miniatures, especially if I'm doing a batch. And so I thought it'd be a bit hard to, if I glued them to the base, it'd be a bit hard to get to the underside. So what I did is I just used a brush to paint on the primer on the underside before I glued them to the base, and I'll just prime the rest of it with the airbrush as with the rest of them later. And so that's that. And I'll speak a bit more about what I might do, because I might use these as the beginning of a tournament list, because as I mentioned, I'd like to start doing tournaments, and I thought maybe I could do a Kroot based army for a tournament. Although they don't come up to that many points this lot, so I'd have to buy a lot more to do that. And the final thing I did, which doesn't really count much, is this is also something I got from eBay. It is a Primaris Psyker of some kind, a librarian, I think they're called. And he's in Terminator armor. And I bought this recently. It was quite cheap off eBay, and I got him. He was already primed and built mostly, although he hadn't glued it. It was just the push fit thing. And so I glued it a little bit so it would stay together a bit more. And I glued it to the base, and I put a texture on the base. It was already primed, so I didn't really need to do anything there. So I didn't do a lot of that. And fun fact, this will be my first Space Marine model in 30 years, because I've been out of the hobby for a long time, but even after I got back, which is into the Warhammers, which was sort of midlife crisis time, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't know. Yeah, I hadn't really got into Space Marines at all, basically because everyone does Space Marines, so I didn't really want to be treading water that everyone else had already done. I wanted to do something different. And I figured it would be a service to the community to pick up a faction that was not as often played. And so we got Guard, Eldar, Tau, Orcs, and I think that's most of it. Yeah, mostly what I do now. I got a bit nostalgic for the Dawn of War computer games. And I thought, well, I could make them Blood Ravens. And I quite like the memes on Twitter about Blood Ravens being, nicking things and stuff. And so Blood Ravens, this is what I'm going to paint them as. I don't know if I'll ever do more than this. I might just paint him as paint him and sell him. I might just do that, or it might be the beginning of a Space Marine army. I don't know yet. So anyway, that's that. Yes. So actually, yes. So the first Space Marines I ever painted was, or the last Space Marines I painted, I should say, was the very first Space Marine plastic kit. I'll put a picture up in the video in editing, so you'll know what I'm talking about. And old boys like me might remember them. They were a really terrible plastic kit. The original, I think, the very first plastic kit that Games Workshop ever made for anything. And so that was the last Space Marine I painted. So it's a bit of a jump to go from them to this. But painting is painting, and I'm not a bad painter. I hope you'll agree, and you perhaps can't see too easily. Let's get an example. Maybe I'll change the lens so we can get real close on something. What shall we look at? Let's look at this Goth Boss. I'm not going to say this is my best ever miniature, but it's quite good, I think. I'm going to say it's quite good. And well, you can always watch some of my other videos as well, because I've done a few other videos about painting and whatnot. I do have a playlist for Orcs and a playlist for Eldar, and I probably should do one for Tau, because I do paint Tau as well. And a Guard, I should do Guard as well. So, but that's for the future. And so every week from now on, I'll make a new video documenting what I've done to keep up with the streak. And before you go, why not put in the comments what kind of hobby streaks you're working on, and you can feel free to link to your Instagrams or your your Twitters, or wherever you post your progress, you can post those links in the comments, and we can all, you know, help each other out with our own hobby streaks and whatnot. And once again, there'll be links in the description for that special box. And one other thing I want to show you, actually, which is, this is a new workstation I bought, and I do think it's good to have a nice work area. And one of the things is I don't like to sit down anymore. Now that I'm old, I want to try to keep active, you know. I want to keep active, so I like to work standing up, which sounds weird, but it actually kind of works for me. I've done all this standing up. The problem with standing up is tables aren't really the right height usually. So what I've got is an adjustable table. Now I'm going to try and show you this. So if I press this button, it will start lowering itself. Look at that, all by itself, electronically. It won't go too, these boxes are stacked up, man. It won't hit that. But it can go all the way down to like a normal desk height. This is still a standing desk at this point, you know. And if I press 4, it will go to its highest pre-setting. It can go higher probably. And so I'm quite tall, actually. I'm over 6 feet. And this table is now quite high enough for me to rest my elbows on it as I paint, which means I can hold it quite steady and not sit down, be stood up, which is quite nice. I feel like that's a good thing. And so I'll put a link into the description where I got this table as well. I don't know if that's an interesting thing to you, but there are tables like this besides this one, if this is not your taste, and it's really good. I like it because I can change its height, you know. So if you want to work standing up, that's just amazing. Anyway, so I think that's enough for today. There will be follow-up videos, obviously, for each day, not day, week. Every week I will do another video to show you what I have done. And so like, subscribe and all that thing, and bye for now.